tonight. Bonnie degenerates, however Darby is named. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for July 10th. New on our worldwide map this evening is Tropical Storm Darby, which was named a fair few hours ago, bringing the total number of named storms so far this year to 35. Also worth noting is what remains of Bonnie, now a post-tropical cyclone, and Aere still persists now as an extratropical system just off the coast of Japan. The Atlantic is still unusually quiet for this time of year, with not even an area of interest to speak of on day 40 of hurricane season in this part of the world. Moving on, we have the Eastern Pacific, which the headlining act tonight is newly formed Tropical Storm Darby, as well as post-tropical cyclone Bonnie. And not to mention an area of interest with a formation chance of 20% just off the coast of Mexico. However, we will discuss more on Darby in just a moment. However, we've got to deal with the other side of the Pacific. Over here we have 99W and 90W, both with a 20% chance of formation, both of those figures within 5 days. Also near the top of your screen right there is extratropical cyclone Aere, which should continue to drift northwards, currently located off the coast of Japan, and like I said, should continue to drift northwards and dissipate fairly soon. Over in the North Indian Ocean, it's business as usual with nothing active in this part of the world right about this time of year. Jumping into satellite views, the Atlantic once again looking devoid of any activity apart from what looks to be, to my untrained eye, an extratropical system moving into or near enough to Nova Scotia. Darby taking center stage in the satellite imagery of the Eastern Pacific. Bonnie, just barely traceable to Darby's northwest, as well as a 20% area of interest continuing to develop just south of the coast of Mexico, right about there. Imagery on the Western Pacific side of things appears to be glitching, so please bear with me. But as far as I can see, 99W is trying its best in the South China Sea, whereas 90W, because of the glitching imagery, we can't really see much of what's going on. But from what I can gather, it appears to be struggling to the east of the Philippines. It is also worth mentioning both of these invests have a 20% 5-day formation chance. Like I said, it's business as usual here in the North Indian Ocean, with nothing tropical expected to develop in this part of the world, which is normal for this time of year, don't get us wrong, it's normal. Nothing happening right now. Don't forget, you can go to our merch store where you can buy things such as individual animations, mugs, and hey, your very own pillow, in which you can initiate pillow fights sponsored by Force 13 onto your siblings. I do also believe that there are a few new products being added to the store sometime soon, however Nathan not included. Alright, moving on. Newly formed Darby is expected to continue to traverse westwards and, believe it or not, is expected to strengthen into a hurricane in 36 hours from now, if I have read this cone correctly. So more on Darby. Here's a closer look. Basically, currently located at 14.3 degrees north and 113.5 degrees west, currently with a wind speed of 40 miles an hour and a central pressure of 1006 millibars. Here's the expected track forecast of Tropical Storm Darby. As you can see, it is expected to continue westwards on the upswing, as in 36 hours it is expected to intensify into a hurricane, but as of now it persists with a wind speed of 40 miles an hour and a central pressure of 1006 millibars. Here are the multi-model diagnostics for Bonnie. Now, as you can see, the models think that this system is practically dead, over and done with, kaput, finito, with one of the factors contributing towards this is a deep layer shear, which as you can see is on a very sharp rise before just practically disappearing off the face of the Earth. Sea surface temperatures are also a contributing factor by being way too low for cyclone development at roughly, if I'm reading that correctly, 23 degrees Celsius right about now. And finally, relative humidity is also on a huge decline as well. So here are the multi-model diagnostics for Darby. Once again, the models take this system on quite the intensity rise, with some models expecting just over 80 knots for this system, which if you bear with, it's just in line with the NHC's forecast. However, the only thing we can do is to wait and see whether that holds true. One of the reasons here is that shear will continue to be on the lowdown for quite a few days, with only a maximum of 10 knots of shear expected. Sea surface temperatures are also favourable for Darby, as they are currently well above the threshold for tropical cyclone development, as is the same with relative humidity. Here, jumping into the sea surface temperatures for the world, for the whole planet, if that's what I'm trying to say, is starting off with the Western Pacific. It is piping hot with temperatures of mostly 29 degrees Celsius, some isolated pockets of 30 degrees. Bay of Bengal remains roughly around 28 degrees, the Arabian Sea 26 to 27 if I'm reading that correctly. However, just off the coast of Somalia, registering temperatures as low as 20 degrees Celsius. The tropical Atlantic is still warming up with 28 degree waters in the main development region. The tropical Eastern Pacific largely remains around 28 degrees. The La Nina still remains prevalent around the equator of the Pacific. The Central Pacific registering around 27 degrees. Moving on to the sea surface temperature anomalies, the Eastern and Central Pacific still remain mostly below average. The La Nina once again still in full swing and extending over into the Western Pacific, which remains warmer than average. The Atlantic pretty much is also above, but a huge pocket of below average in the subtropics. The Bay of Bengal remains mostly above average. The Arabian Sea practically all below average, with a pocket once again just off the coast of Somalia extending into the purples, meaning incredibly below average. I do, however, just quickly want to bring attention to just how much the Mediterranean is above average, just to the right of your screen there. Perhaps a good time of year to go on holiday. You never know. Oceanic heat content, in the Atlantic slowly expanding, most prevalent in areas such as the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. Oceanic heat content in the Pacific, starting over in the Western Pacific, full of energy with a lot of red towards the eastern Philippines. However, there is practically no ocean heat content at all in the Central and Eastern Pacific. It's all just not there. You can probably blame the La Nina for that. On this day back in 2005, we had Hurricane Dennis, which attained Category 4 status for the third and final time as it approached Florida, and just before making landfall later on in the day over Santa Rosa Island as a Category 3 system. Nothing else was active in the world on this day, however. Okay, and so that brings us over to the next names in each basin. First up, the Atlantic. The next name here is Danielle, followed by O. Up next in the Eastern Pacific is Estelle, followed by Frank. And in the Central Pacific, for the 1000th time, the next name is Hone. How are you guys not sick of this by now? Up next in the Western Pacific, we have Songda, and starting off list 5, we have Tracez. I hope I've pronounced that correctly, apologize if I haven't. Up next in the North Indian Ocean is Sitrang, followed by Mandus. Up next in the Australian region, starting off the season for the 2022 to 23 season is Darien, followed by Ellie. Up next in the Southwest Indian, starting off the season this time around, is Ashley, followed by Bulletin. And up next in the South Pacific is Hale, followed by Irene. That's all for now. Hope we'll see you again for another Tropical Weather Bulletin tomorrow night.